Greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome back to the Hour of Power. That's right, the written truth word spoken here on Talking Philly Sports with Matty B, on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B in tow on this beautiful Monday night, February 26, 2024. And we keep rolling these weeks through, and every week it seems like you want to get to a point where we don't have stuff to talk. I guess maybe you don't want to get to that point. But being a Philadelphia sports fan, and kind of enduring or tying your life to the Philadelphia sports scene, definitely gives you a lot to talk about. And we're back again to the same circle of talking about things. A bunch of stuff here going on. It doesn't necessarily seem like it should be this active on February 26th, where you got your football team is not playing. Your baseball team has just started playing. Your basketball team, I guess, is playing. And your hockey team is scratching and clawing their way every day. But there's things to get into. And I can't wait, because guess what? Your baseball team just started playing. And we're going to jump into some spring training action. The Phillies lost today on a walk-off wild pitch in the bottom of the ninth inning against the Minnesota Twins, thus falling down 2-1 in Grapefruit League play. If anybody actually is keeping track of that, you're a better person than me, because I don't have that type of intensity, and maybe I should. Maybe I'm negligent in my duties, but I've been watching every single game, with the exception of today, because unless you were in the Tampa area of Florida, or maybe in Minnesota, you weren't watching that game. And I tried in every which way to watch it, but I was shut down at every pass. So did not watch the game today, but I did watch Saturday and I did watch Sunday. So there's some things to get into, some interesting storylines that are developing early on here in camp, some players that are fighting for some of the very few roster spots that remain on this team, and we'll get into some of the names here in a little bit. Of course, your hockey team has had an interesting month of February, really started off the month hot, really was kind of getting a lot of people behind them. They've kind of struggled a little bit. Now they're dealing with some injury issues to three of their main players, and it's going to be interesting to see. Once you factor in those three injuries, you factor in the trade deadline, and you factor in the backup goalie situation, it's going to be interesting to see how this season wraps up for the Flyers as they head on down the home stretch of the 23-24 season. And the Eagles are still in the news, even though we are at probably with the exception of that like late June to late July period, this is probably the quietest that it is in the NFL. But now we're still talking about the Eagles, and we're still talking about players on this team. Of course, the one A.J. Brown comes to mind, and I'm not really going to mention or talk much about it, but I think it deserves to be talked about, and I think it's an interesting response to it, how some of the fan base, who, let's face it, man, the Eagle fan base is soft. They're just soft, and yeah, I still consider myself part of them, but it is a very soft fan base. We're going to get into some of the things that were allegedly said or not said or reported on but not accurate. We'll get into a little of that as well, and we'll kind of wrap up this show. But before I get started on all that fun stuff, we got to get things rolling the way we do every week, and that is your day in Philadelphia sports history. And this moment in Philadelphia sports history is brought to you by the good folks over at Dolan's down there in 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park for Quizzo music, great times, memorabilia giveaways, and you don't know who's going to fall through that front door at any time. Check out Dolan's. Tell PJ and the gang we said hey. When I say we, I mean EOP. And they'll take great care of you. And just like last week, I had the question, what was the difference between Delco and Delaware County? I still don't know the difference. So if anybody out there has that information for me, please provide it, because it would greatly enhance my intellectual status in life if I knew the difference between Delco and Delaware County. Again, totally ignorant here on my standpoint. But let's go to your day in Philadelphia sports history. We're going to go all the way back to the year 1968, 5 years before I was born. And we're going to go to the hardwood on this one. We're going to go to the high school hardwood. That's right. High school basketball in the city of Philadelphia in 1968 was your day in Philadelphia sports history. It had everything to do with the North Catholic High School varsity team. Well, I guess they were on their way into the Catholic League playoffs, but they were having an issue. Their head coach, a guy by the name of Jack Friel, was having an issue with his team. Apparently, they all decided to cut class and not go to chemistry. I don't know what classes they cut. Well, back when we had standards in this world and standards in our society, the coach did the only thing he could do. He benched his entire team. That's right. He benched the entire varsity high school team for cutting class right before a Catholic League playoff matchup at the Palestra, right? I mean, it don't get bigger than that at the high school level in the late 60s, as I am told. I was not there. But they did not forfeit the game. Nope. Coach Friel decided to do the next best thing. He took the JV team, the junior varsity team, gave them about a half hour to get their sneakers, report to the Palestra. We're going to do about an hour practice to kind of familiarize ourselves with our scheme, and we're going to get out there and we're going to do the best we can. Because you guys are going to class, you guys are doing academically what you're supposed to do, so you're not going to miss out on this opportunity, and you're going to play. And they went up against Bishop McDevitt in this game. Now, this game should not have been. I mean, when you put a varsity team against a JV team, it shouldn't even be a thing, right? Well, not on this day in 1968, because the North Catholic junior varsity replacement team for the varsity defeated Bishop McDevitt in the Catholic League semifinals 77-60. I mean, they blew them out, thus becoming one of the greatest, if not the greatest, underdog sports stories in history. It got national attention, and, kudos to the coach for doing the right thing there. And obviously, I'm not necessarily sure he thought they were going to win the game, but to have the standard to say, you know what, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, student athlete, then you're not going to play, and I'm going to get the JV team, and we're going to do the best we can. And they did by defeating Bishop McDevitt 77-60. That is your day in Philadelphia sports history, the greatest high school, or hell, I'm going to say it, man. That might be the greatest sports underdog story I've ever heard. And as I said, if there's any members of that basketball team listening to this game right now, or listening to this show, please, I'd like to hear from you. If anybody else knows about this, because this is the first I'm hearing about it. But yeah, that was your day in Philadelphia sports history. Remember, today's day in Philadelphia sports history was brought to you again by the good folks down there at Dolan's on 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park for Quizzo music, great times, memorabilia giveaway, and you never know who might fall through the front door. Head down to Dolan's. So pretty good stuff, right? To kick off your sports week here, talk about the greatest sports underdog story in history, maybe in the city. Just do a movie about that. That's right. Do a movie. Okay, let's get into what we came here to discuss. Let's talk some sports, some Philadelphia sports. I am going to kick off with the Eagles, and I really don't want to, but I just kind of want to get this thing out of the way with, because I want to move on, and I want to provide to you my take on this story. It's gotten way out of control. So I guess what happened was Derek Gunn and another guy, a national reporter, got sources within the Eagle locker room and basically said there's all kinds of stuff. You guys don't know what's happening. It's bad, right? You had players talking how basically the entire team revolted against the defense. I mean, it's widespread knowledge that the offensive team went rogue at least once. Now we're hearing it's more than that. Now we're hearing that the defense rebelled against Sean Desai. We're also hearing that certain other players had issues dealing with contracts. Apparently, Jalen Hurts was named as a player who did not handle the pressure of having that big contract and all of a sudden being kind of thrust into that franchise quarterback role, that he kind of, bowed up a little bit and didn't handle his responsibilities as a leader. And I guess A.J. Brown was named as a player that, was not very happy. And so I guess he got upset, decided to call one of the local Philadelphia sports talk radio shows here in town, 94 WIP, and went off, basically saying how the media in this town is horrible. You don't know how to treat people. How dare you guys treat people or talk about people like this? And that's not necessarily the story here to me. Listen, you're a grown man. You do what you think you need to do to clear your name or whatever. I don't care. What the story for this to me is the outcry of support from the Eagle fan base to A.J. Brown. And the condemnation of the reporters that were involved in breaking this story or creating a falsehood, allegedly. I don't know. Or breaking the story. That to me is the story. The delusion of the Philadelphia sports fan or the Philadelphia Eagle fan base. And I'm not going to sit here and say that what was reported was correct because obviously I don't know. I wasn't there, nor did I report it, nor was it sources that were telling me this stuff, right? But are we really going to get and rally to the cause of a man, an A.J. Brown, who is a leader on this football team? Now, guys, I get it. Maybe I have a different definition of what a leader is. I was in the military for 30 years, right? Leadership is a pretty big deal in the military. Being a good leader was a pretty big deal in the military, right? You kind of had to demonstrate proficiency in it in order to kind of get promoted, right? And kind of move up the ranks. So, you get all types of leaders, right? They teach you all types of things, and you take things from all different types of leaders. I'm not saying that I had great leaders all the time, and I'm not saying that I didn't have my moments as a leader. But there's a certain thing that, in my opinion, that is core to a leader. And that is to lead from the front, but from the back as well. Lead from the front by your actions, not by your words. And A.J. Brown is not a leader. And I get people defending him by saying, oh, well, he's really good at his position. Yeah, that's great. But that doesn't make you a leader. You put a C on your jersey and you walk around and you're a captain, there's a certain thing that I think is expected of you. And A.J. Brown is not a captain. He's not a leader. And I'm not comparing what he does on the football field to what I did on the battlefield. I'm not comparing the two. But he falls short on all aspects of leadership. From his diva attitude. And he defended himself by saying, you guys see me on the sidelines yelling and chirping about things, right? You automatically assume it's because I'm not getting the ball. And you don't know that for sure, right? And he's right. We don't know that. Maybe he is trying to fire up his people. I don't know, right? But the other things, the hijacking of that locker room during the season when he wouldn't speak to the media became the biggest story of that time, of that 2-week period. The Eagles season is unraveling in front of our faces, but the biggest story coming out of that locker room was the fact that A.J. Brown wouldn't speak. And then when he decided to speak, it was the biggest story again. That is not a leader. That is somebody who wants the attention and the spotlight put on them for whatever reason, to clear his name, to act like a child, I don't know, to get that attention. But that's not what a leader does. So first and foremost, those things to me tell me A.J. Brown is not a leader. So why should I not believe when other things are coming out about this guy's character, about this guy's personality, about this guy's persona? Right? Why should I not believe that when we have the smoke? Why isn't there fire? Right? And it's already known that the offense went rogue. Right? They decided to take matters into their own hands and try to be the heroes. So we already know there's issues there. We already know there's a smoking gun, so to speak. I didn't mean that, Derek Gunn. I apologize. I just got that. But we already know that. We already know that there's something there. Anything that you do to further fuel the situation is not, in my opinion, going to make me think, oh, you know what, this poor guy's being crucified here. He's totally innocent. No, it's acting completely the reverse way. And for all these fans to come to this man's aid, like, oh, AJ, we got your back. We love you. Man, I don't love AJ Brown. No, I don't care about AJ Brown. I don't. He's here to do a job. He is part of the football team. I will be here after he leaves, right? He's just here now. I don't love him. When did this have to be a thing where we all have to be in love with each other? Listen, he is in the spotlight. That's his chosen profession. That's the gift God gave him is to be a professional football player at a very high level. So he puts himself in that spotlight. If you don't perform up to the standard that each one of us seems to have a different one, which is fine, but if you don't perform up to that standard, You're going to get criticized. It's the way it is. That's your chosen profession. I am not there to wipe your nose, A.J. Brown, or hold your hand or pat you on the head and tell you it's going to be okay. No, man. I am here to hold you to the standard of winning and to criticize you when you lose. That goes for the other 52 people on that team, too. So this Eagle fan base, and it's sickening is what it is. It's sickening that we want to stick our head in the sand over every negative thing that could potentially exist on this football team. We want to pretend that there's no negativity here, that there's nothing wrong, that it's perfectly normal to go from 10-1 to 11-6 to finish the season. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just a bump in the road, a glitch in the matrix. There's nothing wrong with that. They want to believe that so badly that they stick their head in the sand about everything else. There's something wrong with this team. That's evident by their performance on the field. And you know what? I'm not the biggest 94 WIP guy. I'm not. They do have a narrative and agenda, but so do I. So does everybody else. And again, this just being so righteous and we're going to crucify them for how dare you. No, you have an agenda. Everybody with internet and a Twitter account has an agenda these days, to include yours truly. So listen, don't deflect all that. Accept all that. And allow people to be what they want to be and do what they want to do. If you don't like what WIP is saying, then turn off the radio and walk away. But don't try to poison the others out there by saying that they were so off base by doing what they did. They weren't. They're reporters. They reported on a story. They had a source. They had a credible source, and they ran with the story. Now, am I saying it's a 100%, truth? No. No, I'm not. But I guarantee you there's more truth in there than there's lies. I want to tell you that much. So we are so far removed from the season, but yet we're so stuck in the middle of it still. And now we're making excuses, which we do as a fan base these days. That's all we do in Philadelphia with the Eagles. We make excuses. And I love the whole, and this is on this network too. Everything, they want to sit here and say, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But then when we look at shows that do that, what's the Party on Broad guys, or I don't know which show is doing it, but they're talking about the free agents as they should bring back and let go. And don't quote me, and they do a great job. But all the issues with this team, they still want to keep around. And they don't want to get rid of everybody. And I hear the whole, Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox deserve to come back because they're all-time Eagles. No, they don't. The hell they do. Their contracts are up. If they performed to get another contract, then they deserve to come back. If not, they deserve to go away. We don't owe them nothing. They owe us everything. We don't owe them absolutely nothing. But we wanna sit here and try to put ourselves in such a higher plane than everybody else, and we make excuses for everything, from the clown head coach to the criminal GM. We're making excuses for. The Eagles, they didn't address linebacker before Howie got. What the hell? Well, who cares what was happening before Howie was here? And who cares when it refers to Howie, what happens after Howie leaves? Well, pray to God, that's soon. Who cares what cares about is what's happening today. And they don't address linebacker. He hasn't addressed linebacker. He's been terribly inconsistent on this draft across the board. But we want to make excuses how the Eagles, as a history of the organization, has never really. Well, who gives a rat's ass? All right, we're more concerned about what's happening here today now, and stop making excuses. When you're 10-1, and they weren't the sexiest 10-1 going, right? When there was cracks in the dam, and people were sticking their fingers in the holes, and those holes kept springing, and they kept putting their fingers in, and eventually they ran out of fingers to put in. When that happened, and the dam broke, guess what? It broke because there's a problem, and it's not defending one of the problems. And yes, he is one of the problems. A.J. Brown is one of the problems on this team. Superior athlete. But he is one of the problems. But we're going to defend him. Because why? We love him? Huh? How many Super Bowls has A.J. Brown brought here? How many? Is there one stash in the back room that I'm missing? We haven't won a Super Bowl since A.J. Brown's here. Right? We got almost there. We didn't win one. What do we owe? Why do we seem that we owe A.J. Brown something? I think A.J. Brown owes us something. He owes an explanation of what happened to him and the rest of the team. Not this self-righteous, why can't you just be, talk nice about us all? Man, this is Philadelphia, right? Last time I checked. We were supposed to be one of the most passionate fan bases in America, but yet we want to like kumbaya with everybody now. So A.J. Brown's nonsense continues. And, there's a rumor floating around out there that there's a big trade of brewing with one of the bigger players. God, that would be nice if it was A.J. Brown because, and as David so poetically states, it's T.O. all over again. It is. It's T.O. in the 21st century, or I shouldn't say that because this was in the 21st century. It's T.O. 2.0, right? It's the millennial version of Terrell Owens all over again. And he made a point, A.J. Brown did, on his little defense piece on 94 WIP to totally deflect that by saying, I'm nothing like T.O. Well, yeah, you are, dude. If go back and watch the tape, man, you're going to see a lot more similarities to the way you're behaving and the way he behaved. You're right. You're not T.O. Matter of fact, I think T.O. is a better wide receiver than him, but there's some strange similarities and too strange similarities for my liking right now in this town. So, yeah, I think we got a T.O. situation on our hands. And I asked that to Kyle Quinn way back in week 2. Matter of fact, was it week 2 in 2022? I asked him that question. Do we have a potential T.O. situation? And Kyle adamantly said, no. Well, I think Kyle's wrong because I think we got a T.O. situation. So, yeah, I'm here talking about the Eagles because of the drama and of the soft-ass Eagle fan base, because we apparently can't criticize anymore without violating some sort of inner code about how we're all supposed to love each other and that there's nothing to see here. Everything is right here. We were 10-1 and finished 11-6, but everything is right here. Move on. Nothing to see. Please don't speak to us and talk only nicely when you do. So get a grip, Eagles Nation. Get a friggin' grip. Your team is on the verge of imploding. And the excuses are just going to keep coming and coming and coming as we get into the offseason, to free agency. And next year is going to be one of the most, I think, painful seasons of my life. Because it's all going to unfold. It's all going to, I shouldn't say unfold. It's all going to unravel. By about week 8, it's going to be in complete disarray. I'm talking 2-6, 3-5, maybe if they're really lucky. And we're going to hear it all. And you're going to start hearing some of the You're going to start hearing some of the, you guys are just too impatient and we got to give them a chance to turn it around. You're going to hear all that coming out. You're going to hear how it's because Jalen Hurts changed his breakfast cereal this year that he's struggling. You're going to hear about how A.J. Brown is being vilified by the media, that he is struggling. You're going to hear how Nick Sirianni's not been given a fair shake to why we're struggling. You're going to hear about how Howie Roseman is the greatest thing on this earth since sliced bread, and just can't seem to get it right, but give him another year, says why we're struggling. You're going to hear all the excuses 3.0 come out at you at around week 8 as the dam, as I use that dam analogy, as there's no more fingers left to stick in the holes and we're drowning. And I really hope that's not the case, but there's nothing that's trending, in my opinion, to say otherwise, other than wear some boots because you're going to need them next year. So Eagles drama continues to unfold right in front of our own eyes. And I hate it. It really sucks. But that little rant segment was brought to you here on the Edge of Philly Sports by Dave Cherry and the Cherry Injury Law Group at www.cherryinjurylaw.com for all your workman's compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, criminal law. Call Mr. Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300. That's 300. And Dave Cherry will take care of all of those issues and more. And maybe he'll talk to you about A.J. Brown. Maybe he can provide you some insight. I don't know. We going back to the playoffs. Trust and believe. Trust the process. Elijah Muhammad. Listen, my friend. You crazy. you crazy, man. I'm going to put it to you like that. Listen, if the Eagles get back to the playoffs, right? Maybe that's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have jumped to that conclusion and call you crazy about that. Is that what we're looking here? Is that what the ceiling is? The playoffs? Aren't we a Super Bowl contender? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Aren't we a Super Bowl contender? Aren't we supposed to be bringing the trophy home? So I don't believe they're a Super Bowl contender, and I certainly do not believe they're going to get back to the playoffs. Now, we have a whole offseason ahead of us, and that could change, right? We could figure it out. They could make all the right moves. They could bring in they could draft amazingly, and the second-year draft picks from 2023, they could hit. The 2022 picks could hit. All this stuff could lightning in the bottle yet again, and that would be great. But really, if you look deep inside yourself, man, look deep down. Do you really believe that? Based on what we just saw walk off the field a few weeks ago, that this is a playoff team in 2024. Right now, I think this team is a 3-win team, maybe 5. Right now, today, they are a 5-win team based on the schedule that they have to face heading into 2024. And of course, that schedule is not necessarily been, all we know is the opponents. We don't necessarily know times and places other than, of course, that trip to Brazil, but we don't know who they're playing, when, and where. But the schedule is out, right? We already know that this is it. This is the schedule for 2024. This is our home and our away schedule. And if you look at these teams, I don't see playoffs here. I see 5. Maybe if I really look hard enough, I can see 7 wins. But I don't see anything more than that. I don't think they beat any of the only lock games on this schedule that I see the Eagles winning. The only game on this schedule that I can sit here and say right now the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win is against the Panthers. That's it. The rest of them, it's going to be an interesting battle, back and forth. But the only game that you can really look at, in my opinion, and say that's a win, that's the Carolina Panthers. And again, I get it. It's a whole offseason ahead of us, but I don't see more than 5 or 7 wins at all for this team. And Elijah Muhammad says, yeah. Well, hey, man, you keep the faith then. Keep it burning, because that's how it happens, right? You get that spark, and it turns into a flame, and it turns into a roaring inferno, and then finally we win a Super Bowl. But brother, I think you're barking up the wrong tree here, man. I think we're in a bad way, and that bad way is only going to get worse right now unless we make major changes. And if you're new to this show, and if you're new to EOP, please go ahead and like and subscribe so that we can continue this great conversation. And you can check out the other shows on this network. But if you've not seen who I am or dealt with me, I believe Howie Roseman is the epicenter of the problems on this football team and the culture that he provides to this team. Now, Nick Sirianni, of course, is not guilt-free either. This guy's a clown and a buffoon, and we don't even know what his role is. So listen, there's a lot more stuff happening and a lot more stuff to happen. So, but keep the faith, man, by all means. They could find a backup quarterback. Yeah, they could. Absolutely. The dude's like, yeah, we did. Yes, we did. This is depressing. On to the Phillies. Linebackers that we need major help at. We need linebackers yes, we do. We need major help at linebacker. We need major help at safety. We need major help at DB. And what about our quarterback? Do we need major help there? Or we need major answers? One or the other? Because right now, that's the biggest question mark I have going into. Listen, I know where we are at linebacker. I know where we are on safety. I know where we are in our DBs, our cornerbacks. But what about the quarterback? Does anybody know where we are with that? Is everybody just like, you know what? Shake it off, man. We're going to be okay. But no, my major concern is at the QB position. That's where I'm concerned. Absolutely, 100%. And Danny says, you got Kellen Moore, you doomed. Yeah. I guess you're not an Eagle fan. You might be doomed. I don't know. We'll see. We were doomed last year. This is kind of what we do now. But on to the Phillies, as David says. This is too depressing to talk about. So the Phillies are off and running here in Clearwater. The 2024 spring training Grapefruit League season is upon us. Phillies are 2-1. Again, if anybody's actually keeping track of that at home, you're a better man than me because I'm not. But we have a lot of early. We have a few early storylines we want to get into talk, and I want to get into talking about tonight because there's been some positives very early on in the season. Pick up a blitz once in a while. Absolutely, I agree. You guys, you trolls here are trying to get me to kind of go back and forth with you. You do realize who I am, right? If not, you need to do some research on me. I'm out on the Eagles, 100%. I love them. They're my team, and I'll ride and die with them to the end. But I'm out. I'm out, man. I'm been out for years until they change some things. So I want to set the ground rules there. You're probably not gonna get much disagreement from me when you criticize the Eagles. You really aren't. That's just not how I am. But if you cross a line with me and the Eagles, then yeah, I'll get frustrated. But I'm not. That's not crossing a line. You're absolutely 100% right. We were horrible against the blitz. Your guess is as good as mine at quarterback. Yeah, and that's a pretty big issue. That's a pretty big damn issue heading into the season. Love the Phillies atmosphere with pickleball. Yeah, or what they call it? Don't they call it packleball? Out of the in homage to Paco Figueroa, the first base coach who kind of brought pickleball to their facility. It's over there behind the first base on the right field line. They have a little pickleball court where they work on, but they can only use their glove hand to smash the pickleball. So you can't switch hands. You got to stay with your glove hand, your non-throwing hand, and it's teaching them some agility. But 2-1. Some positive pitching performances from Aaron Nola yesterday. Pitched 2 very seamless innings against the Yankees. Of course, he was going against the split squad Yankees, who was pretty much, it was their AA, AAA, and single A affiliate, but he pitched dominantly against that team. You had some Mick Abel sprinkled in yesterday. The Phillies pitching staff performed amazingly yesterday against the split squad Yankee team, but they still performed amazingly. And offensively, this team is showing a lot of life here early on in this spring. On Saturday, they had a 10-run fourth inning against the Blue Jays en route to a 14-12 win. Yesterday, they put up a bunch of runs. Today, not so much, as again, I wasn't really following the game today. Could not find the game anywhere on TV. But some of the storylines out of spring that I want to address, and I just kind of talked about 2 of them, were Nola and Abel. But also Scott Kingerly, that he is actually hitting the crap out of the ball right now, and I know I already sense the radar waves. I get it. Trust me, I'm not going down that road. Right? Scott Kingerly was a mistake. A 6-year blunder that we're no longer tied to. Right? You guys know that that 6-year deal is over with. Kingerly was actually brought back this year on a minor league deal. A camp deal. Kingerly obviously made his millions and now is looking to kind of stay in baseball. And he's doing so far so good right now. Now, I don't have any aspirations of him playing for the Phillies this year, but AAA, AA, absolutely. He could definitely be something down there. And is Scott Kingerly ever going to figure it out and actually be a serviceable Major League Baseball player? You don't know. And if you can get him on the cheap, which the Phillies have already kind of got him on the cheap right now, why not throw him down in AAA? Give him a half a season. And if he's continuing to smack the crap out of the ball, yeah, give him a shot back up here. Why not? We could find a diamond in the rough. Whit Merrifield is a perfect example of a player who kind of started out his career slowly, but then as he got older, it blossomed, and he became a professional hitter. So, maybe Scott Kingerly is going to go down that road. Again, I get it. I'm not saying let's hand over the big contract again, but if he continues to impress, why not? Why not put him down in AAA to start the season? Give him another shot. Let see what he can do for you. Another story is Weston Wilson. That third baseman who kind of was the Derek Hall story of last year, right? Comes up his first game in a Phillies uniform, hits that home run on the Michael Lorenzen no-hitter night. Was it August 9th, I believe? He's had a pretty good start to his spring. David Dahl is another player who I am very closely keeping an eye on, because I honestly think that what the Phillies did with their bench at the 11th hour by bringing in Merrifield and Dahl, I really do. If Dahl can work out and we can get Dahl, who is on the cheap, he's on a minor league deal, and we get him and he's that 4th member of the bench, And we can have a bench that is constructed of Merrifield, Dahl, Stubbs, and maybe, I guess it would be Sosa, right? If we can have a bench like that, the more offensive options off that bench, the better. And I think that Merrifield obviously fits that need of an offensive option. But if Dahl can be that other option, because Merrifield's going to be not necessarily a bench guy. He's going to be that sixth man guy, so to speak. He's going to play more than he doesn't. He's going to be constantly filling in for guys that need a break. And I'm not saying he's not going to be a bench guy, but he's not going to be kind of looked at that way. So if we can have another guy like a Dahl who is looked at like a bench guy, and we can use that, that's just going to make our bench better. And it's all about October. It's all about how we hit in the postseason and how we are able to kind of respond to the way that pitchers are going to adjust to us. So those are some of the really good stories that I am keeping an eye on in camp. And the other story, of course, is the Zach Wheeler thing, right? The big contract extension, the money. Zach Wheeler, when's he getting paid? A lot of talk about that. And then also when you talk, people are talking about Zach Wheeler, and then the other word out of their mouth is about Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell about doing that. First of all, if they're able to bring in Jordan Montgomery, which I'm totally on board with, but what does that say to Zach Wheeler? If say they decide to bring in Jordan Montgomery, but don't figure out a contract extension for Zach Wheeler, I mean, how do you think that's going to make Zach Wheeler feel, right? I don't know. I'm just saying. Again, I kind of went down the Kumbaya road. That's what we do these days, right? We're all about players' feelings. So how's that going to make Zach Wheeler feel if we pop some coin for a Jordan Montgomery, who's not coming here cheap, and he ain't coming here on a 1-year deal either? So is that really something that Zach Wheeler can handle? Is that something the Phillies can handle financially, and also the baggage that it might bring? So I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, and I'm not saying that it might not happen. And I'm also not saying that they're probably, I am going to say this. I'm sorry. I got to backtrack. I don't think the Phillies are going to give Zach Wheeler the contract extension this spring. I don't. And I'm going to give you why. I'm going to give you Matty B's theory, and then we're going to get into the main topic of why we're talking here tonight. But I'm going to get into the reason why I don't think Zach Wheeler gets his contract extension this spring. 100% because of what happened to Andrew Painter. And you might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about? What has that got to do with Zach Wheeler? Well, I'm going to tell you what it has to do with Zach Wheeler. I want to take everybody back to the 2022 offseason, right? Going into 23. You had the Harper Harper Tommy John. And you had this buzz around Andrew Painter, who had just come off of being the minor league player of the year in all of baseball. And he was looking at he was the next greatest thing. He was going to take the Phillies and put them on his shoulders, and he was going to be a combination of Cole Hamels, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and maybe some Steve Carlton sprinkled in, and it's going to be great. The Phillies felt that way, they felt so strongly about this kid that heading into the 2023 spring training, they never addressed any of the starting rotation with the exception of Ty Walker. Right? Don't forget, when we came out of 22, we had two major free agents in the rotation, Zach Eflin and Noah Syndergaard. Those two were major free agents. Eflin was one of the players that everybody wanted to kind of see if they could kick the tires on him. And Syndergaard was brought in here during the trading deadline of 22 to try to help out. Now, it didn't work out, and he moved on. But there were still two holes in the rotation to fill. They signed Taijuan Walker, and I'm telling you, Andrew Painter was the other starter, right? Andrew Painter was going to be that fifth starter next year, barring what happened. Barring an injury, which of course is what happened. But all the buzz surrounding him heading into camp last spring, there was no way in my mind that Andrew Painter wasn't coming out of spring training as the fifth starter. They didn't do anything else to kind of safeguard themselves from it. And then, of course, when he didn't and he got hurt, and then Ranger got hurt, we found ourselves all of a sudden scrambling for starting pitching. And we had a Matt Strahm, Bailey Falter thing going on. And then finally we got some people healthy. But it took a while to kind of figure that out. Now, here's the dilemma, and here's how Zach Wheeler gets tied into this, and how Zach Wheeler's contract is tied into this. Heading into this offseason, Dombrowski knew he had a problem. He had Nola coming as a free agent, and then the year after Nola was going to be Wheeler. He knew that he probably wasn't going to be able to keep both of them. And he was banking on Andrew Painter to take the place of one of them. And hopefully he was banking on a solid 2023 from Painter to really kind of drive who that pitcher was going to be. Was it going to be Nola? Do I got to pump the money now because we're in a window of winning with the roster I built? Do I got to keep the pitching staff somewhat together? Do I got to give Nola the money because this kid doesn't have it? Or, you know what? This kid showed a lot of promise in 2023. I'm going to take the money that I'm going to spend on Nola and maybe spend it on Wheeler, who's, might be the better pitcher. And he's got another year. I have another year to worry about him. I don't have to worry about him in 24. I can worry about him in 25. So when Painter got hurt, it pushed all of Dombrowski's money into the center of the table on Nola. And Nola knew that. And Nola's people knew that. That all of a sudden they got the leverage. That is why the contract, in my opinion, the contract talks last spring between Nola and his representation and the Phillies broke down during spring training or broke down right before spring training because I don't think Dombrowski wanted to budge on a big contract with Andrew Painter in the wings. Now, of course, all that changed when Painter got hurt and then Nola got the money. Now, what does that leave for Zach Wheeler? I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's a real cloudy answer. And I don't necessarily think that Nola was the guy that Dombrowski wanted to give the money to. But he had no choice. So that's why I don't think there's going to be a contract extension given out this year because of two players, Mick Abel and Griff McGarry. I think that they are the two players that Dave Dombrowski now is targeting to potentially take somebody's spot in the rotation next year. And then hopefully banking on Andrew Painter coming back in 2025 and ready to take a roster spot at some point during that season or at very latest 26. So Zach Wheeler might be the odd man out. And I'm not saying it's the right thing because I much would have rather have kept Wheeler and let Nola go. But I think that the Andrew Painter injury has really kind of changed Zach Wheeler's negotiating footprint. And because of the money was already given to Nola, and now with Abel and McGarry and potentially Painter coming back in 2025, I don't know what Dombrowski's going to do. So I don't think a contract gets done at any time this spring. Maybe as the season unfolds and McGarry and Abel are not ready yet and can't step into a starting spot or even a bullpen position on this team, because I think both of them will be Phillies at some point this year. But if they can't stick, then maybe the contract gets worked on throughout the season, or maybe Wheeler's people say, you know what, you don't want to talk to us in the spring, we'll talk at the end of the season. Or, I don't know. But I just think this is a really interesting cat and mouse game going on between the two of them. And I blame Andrew Painter. I do. I blame him. I blame his injury for this. So that's where I stand on the Wheeler thing. But some good stories right off the bat coming out of spring training. And so it's great that baseball is back. David says, what happens to Pache and Hall trade? You know what? Hall is an interesting story here. Obviously, with Bryce Harper now taking over at first, you got to look at that and Derek Hall and his immediate future with his team. Can Derek Hall be a DH? Yeah, he can be a DH. Can he be a spot starter at first? I don't think he can play any other position out there. So he is a first baseman. Is there room for him on this roster as a backup first baseman, as a bench piece? Yeah, I don't know. I would be reluctant to go off of Hall just because of what he can provide the lineup with his power. I don't know. I would be more reluctant. Pache, you got really good speed. You got above average defense. But you got bad issues. Well, we got the same player in Rojas, and then we got Justin Crawford coming up in the system too, who hopefully will be the long-term answer in center field. So I would be more willing to move off of Pache, less willing to move off of Hall. But I wouldn't be surprised. And both those, I wouldn't also be surprised if both of those individuals obviously start their season in AAA. So that's how I feel about that. Harper needs to cool it with the extension talk. Yeah, and we'll talk, and that's man, Dave, reading my mind, man. So moving on to the Bryce Harper talk. This was brought up earlier in the offseason that his Scott Boras was going to, kind of test the water about getting a contract extension. And, it kind of ruffled a lot of people's feathers the wrong way. And here on the Edge of Philly Sports, there's some varying opinions about it. And I'm going to provide you mine. The man's got a 13-year contract that he signed. What? It's a 6th year here in town. You knew the market was going to change. It was going to fluctuate up and down, more so up as you move through. There was, I don't know what kind of conditions were provided, if there was a clause or a open dialect to kind of renegotiate an extension at a certain point. Don't forget that regime is not here no more, with the exception of John Middleton. So I don't know what the parameters of the contract were said. Obviously, you can always renegotiate. Obviously, you can always test the water. But here's the thing. How many World Series have we won since Bryce Harper's been here? How many World Series has he brought here? None. And he's 5 years, right? Going on 6. He's brought none. So he puts butts in the seats. He's the face of the team. He's the best panderer. Nick Sirianni got nothing on him when it comes to pandering. I'll give you all that. But how many World Series has Bryce Harper hand carried to us and placed at our doorstep? None. Not at one. So maybe if we get a few of them, maybe I get some bling bling out of this, at least 2. Maybe we'll talk some contract extension. But until that, get your Philly Fanatic bandana, put your Rocky Win t-shirt. I don't know if that's Sirianni. I think I'm confusing the two of them. Just get your butt back out there on the field and bring me a World Series. And if you do that, let's talk some contract. But right now, no, I would laugh. Ha! If I was Dave Dombrowski in the face of Bryce Harper when it came to a contract extension. How many World Series, Bryce? How many commissioner's trophies have you placed at my feet? None. 0. Zilch. Squat. Zippo. Nada. Do I need to continue on? Until then, yeah, let's see kind of how it evolves. Pat, what's going down, man? Congratulations, Pat. Today's Pat's anniversary. 2 years ago today, Pat was inducted into the, please, Pat, if I screw it up, forgive me, the Philadelphia Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. Is that correct? Pat was inducted 2 years ago, celebrating his 2-year anniversary as a member of the Philadelphia Wrestling Hall of Fame. I know maybe it's not the Philadelphia Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's some sort of Wrestling Association's Hall of Fame. So Pat is a Hall of Famer. Yeah. So congratulations on your anniversary. The Fanatic bat. Yeah, whatever. The Fanatic bat, the socks, the sneakers, whatever you got, just put them on, dance around the field, hit me some home runs, give me some commissioner's trophies. The proof is in the pudding. You want the money? I want the gold, right? Well, let's make a deal here, and we'll go from there. I mean, simpler than that, right? But there's my Phillies talk and my Phillies rant. But it's great time of the year. Phillies tomorrow will be back at it against Minnesota. They played Boston today, right? Yeah, Boston today, Minnesota tomorrow. Philly baseball pretty much every day now from now until hopefully Halloween. Hopefully beyond Halloween. Hopefully sometime into early November, we're talking Philadelphia Phillies. And don't forget, here on the Edge of Philly Sports, the Fighting's Final will be back for its 3rd year of Phillies post-game entertainment. I am a proud member of the Fighting's Final. I am also its founder. That's right. It was my baby. 2022. I launched the Fighting's Final as a one-man show. I am not a one-man show anymore. I have a great crew that works with us. We all work together. Pat is one of them. So we'll be back for year 3 of the Fighting's Final. And Pat says the American Championship Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Absolutely, Pat. There you go. So Pat Bernard celebrating his 2-year anniversary as being a member of the American Championship Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And happy anniversary, Pat. But yeah, the Fighting's Final will be back. Look for our preview show sometime in the next 3 weeks. And also be sure that you're checking out our homepage, our website, for some Phillies written stuff. I've been doing this spotlight articles on players. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. Got the heavy hitters coming up as we get through the month, and we're putting those out at least 2 a week. And I did one on Greg Soto today, and I think later in the week you're going to hear about the bench. That's right. I think my article is on the bench or Rojas, one or the other. I'll do this week, and then it leaves the heavy hitters as we roll into the start of the season. So that is on the edgeofphillysports.com webpage under the Phillies news article page. It's all those articles are there. So check them out, and check out our social media and all that, as we got you covered with the Phillies. And so wrapping up Phillies conversation. One last thing I want to talk about baseball talk about baseball. This is it, man. These are some of our rule changes coming down the pike for 2024. They are going to an 18-second pitch clock with runners on. It's only going to be 4 mound visits now, down from 5. And if a pitcher starts to warm up before an inning, he must face at least one hitter. So that's a change. That was kind of offset that 3 batter rule that they had to do. And then the runner's lane to first, it's been widened to the infield grass. So those are some of the rule changes in heading into the season. Obviously, the pitch clock one to kind of speed the game up even further is one of the main ones there. So again, we are at the pinnacle of the 2024 baseball season. Big soccer games are coming to the link, including Argentina with Messi and Liverpool. Yep. So for all you soccer heads out there, and of course, this is the union season starting up again, and we got you covered here on the Edge of Philly Sports. I'm not the soccer guy, right? I ain't gonna lie, but we have them here. The Attacking Third is a show that we do every week, and I believe they also do union post games. So again, we have it all here. So like and subscribe on the Edge of Philly Sports, and check us out on our Facebook, Twitter, or what is it, X, and then on the big old Google machine, www.eopsports.com. All right. So moving down the home stretch, we got 2 more things we want to talk about, and then I can call it a night. But before we do, remember that segment here on the Edge of Philly Sports was brought to you by yeah, where is it? It's right up here. Brought to you by Sherry's Tickets. Sherry's Tickets for the best tickets of sports, concert, theater tickets. Great prices, no hidden fees. Check out Sherry's Tickets at Sherry's Ticket Town at www.sherrystickets.com. Save an additional 10% at checkout when you enter the promo code EOP10. So they got you covered. Sherry's Tickets at sherrystickettown.com. So head over there right now. Right now! Well, not right now. Head over there after you hang out with me. Let's get into the Fly Guys here, wrap things up. Not necessarily the greatest thing to talk about right now. The Flyers, who had a pretty decent month. The drama of the season continues to just escalate with this team, and it's getting to a point now where this is a great story. This team has been a great story all season long. The resurgence, the return, all the positives that have come from this rebuild so far are nothing to shake a stick at. And you factor in all the off the ice nonsense with the Cutter Gauthier, the Carter Hart. Then you got, now you're throwing in some things now on the ice with we've got some injuries, TK, Risto, and now Jamie Drysdale. That could be a serious one. And then we got now, of course, with the Carter Hart situation, we got backup goalie problems. Listen, this is a lot right now for this team. The process. This is a young team that's not really built for this. I don't really know many teams that are, but they're going through a time right now, and win, lose, or draw, they're going to come out of it better, right? They're going to come out of it, weathered, battle tested. And, it's a great thing to watch. This is all learning. This is all what that is for this team. They played 2 very frustrating games for me over the weekend. A game against the Rangers where they had they had more fire. They wanted the game more. They were a step ahead of them, but they just couldn't finish it because they just don't have the horses in the barn. And then a game yesterday, yeah, you can blame Cal Peterson for. He played like crap. I mean, the guy, first of all, what's he doing with that white hockey mask of his is like 1989. That's like a Ron Hextall Gen 1 hockey mask. Put some color on that thing, man. Good God, dude. It looks like you literally worked on it in your garage, man. Take it to the equipment people. Have them do something with that thing. Put a little personality in there, and maybe it'll change your game. I don't know, but Cal Peterson really doesn't move the needle for me, and I don't know right now at this stage of the season what the Flyers can do. And again, I am not in favor of trading for a goalie. Absolutely 100% not. We have 7 of them in the system, and some of them, their seasons are ending in their other leagues. So if you want to give somebody an opportunity, maybe go that route. But there's not much they can do in March as we get kind of wrapped, coming down the home stretch here. And but all the drama they've had to deal with, and still that they're 9 games above 500, that they're in the middle of a playoff race. And it speaks a lot about the team's character and about the coach's character. So, in short, Nick Sirianni probably needs to go over to the Wells Fargo Center and sit down and kind of pick John Tortorella's brain on how to be a leader of men and how to hold men accountable and how to coach men. And then maybe the Eagle players need to come over and watch the Flyer players and how they go about their business on and off the ice about learning how to be men. But maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe that's what the Eagles need to do. Go over and talk to the Flyers about how to be a man, and maybe we'll be okay. But what the Flyers have done this season amidst all of this, and now you add in the injuries and the backup goalie, it's been amazing. And it's been a good news story. And no matter what happens, we make the playoffs, we don't make the playoffs, it's a successful season for me because it's a step in the right direction. Sometimes those steps, when it was so bad, sometimes those steps are not measured on the ice. They're measured off the ice. They're measured in the locker room, in the clubhouse. And right now they're stepping in that right direction with culture. That's what real culture is. Again, the Eagles might want to kind of poke their heads into the Wells Fargo Center and kind of see what they're doing over there because it might help them with the mess they got to deal with. But 2 losses over the weekend. The Flyers will be back at it tomorrow night at home. Am I right about that? Yeah, back at home against Tampa. And again, you got you covered here on the Edge of Philly Sports. This is your week this is your week on Clear the Ice. This is your schedule. Me and Austin tomorrow night. We'll got you covered for the postgame. Al and Mike on Friday against Washington, and then me and Pat, that's right, on Saturday against Ottawa. So we got you covered there too. So again, I told you we got you covered. So make sure that you're tuned in as the Flyers continue their push down the stretch to a potential playoff appearance, and hopefully nothing stupid at the trade deadline as we're getting closer to that. And as we get closer to that here on EOP, I'll be providing you some more insight on that, where I think the Flyers, again, I kind of, you already know what I want the Flyers to do here, but we'll talk about some of the trades that have already happened and how they might affect other teams. And then on May 1st, that's right, May 1st, mark it on your calendar. I will be personally responsible to get you ready for the 2024 NHL draft in July. So you'll be seeing some stuff, kind of highlighting some players that are going to be looked at here in the draft. Now, some of the players the Flyers might look at, there's 1 or 2 out there that I think they would have an opportunity to get later in the first round. They do have 2 first-round picks, but they're going to be late first-round picks right now based on where they're trending. But we'll get into breaking down some NHL draft picks here as we move forward into the spring and to the summertime. And yeah, Pat says sell. Nah, Pat, you don't want them to do that. That's what I want them to do. I want them to sell. Pat wants to buy. Anyway, but yeah, so be on the lookout for that as we move deeper into the spring, into the summer, and we'll get you covered. And we are going to cover it in some point, at some way, the NHL draft this year. So that's coming up. But before we leave the Flyers, I'd be amiss unless I told you about our Flyer prospect of the week. Here on this show, every week I take a Flyer prospect, a player that is currently languishing somewhere in the Flyer organization, in some league, somewhere, and we talk about him. We kind of go over his stat line. We talk about where he has come from this year and where he might be headed in the near future or next year. We've gone about 4 deep now. I think this is our 5th one. And I've landed on jackpot today. That's right. The man, the myth, the legend. Today's Flyer prospect breakdown is on right wing Matt B. Michkov. That's right. The man, the golden boy, the Russian savior. Yep, the man that's going to come here, hopefully in about a year, and fix everything. Maybe he is. Maybe he's the first piece, the first missing piece to that superstar tandem that we long for. But Matt V, who was selected in this year's draft, 7th overall by the Philadelphia Flyers, 6 teams passed on him. He was considered heading into the draft the second best player, or the first best player, not named Connor Bedard in the draft. But he fell to 7 due to some concerns of his character, on ice character, as well as his current contract situation in the KHL. Some teams were kind of turned off by that and kind of passed up on him. He fell to the Flyers at 7. And now we know that the Flyers are actually trying to move up in that draft, not necessarily to go after Michkov, but when they saw that Michkov was on their way to him, the Flyers actually tried to go up to 5 with the Montreal Canadiens and tried to pull off a trade for a drafted defenseman. Of course, it was Carter Hart who was in that trade talk. So that's come out since all this has started. Oh, no, not Carter Hart. It was Cutter Gauthier. That was that trade target. So, but yeah, so Matt V. Michkov, this is his stat line. His season is over, by the way. It ended last night or yesterday or wherever their time was in Russia. But his KHL 2023-24 season has ended. He played this year with the HK Sochi Hockey Club out of the KHL. He was on loan from St. Petersburg. Played in 49 games, scored 19 goals, 22 assists, had 41 points, a gaudy 26 penalty minutes, and a very uninspiring -6. Now, a little context. Sochi was god-awful. God-awful. And Michkov dealt with pneumonia at some point this season where it cost him about 8 games, and he also dealt with an injury that cost him about 5 or 6 games. So he really kind of didn't get his I don't really think he got his feet under him this year. And then, of course, the drama surrounding him in St. Petersburg. He was traded or loaned to Sochi. So I guess St. Petersburg didn't like the fact that he was advocating hard to leave the KHL this year to come to the NHL. So they sent him down to the lesser Sochi club so that they could punish him. I don't know. But yeah, that was your season from Michkov. 49 games played, 19 goals, 22 assists for 41 points, 26 penalty minutes, and a -6 for a very bad Sochi hockey club. And now the questions continue. When are we going to get him? Is it next year? Is it the year after that? Is there some magic going to be pulled over the next few months to maybe make him a Flyer soon? We'll wait and see. And what does Matt V. Michkov provide the Flyers once he gets here? I think the jury is going to be out on that for a while. This season was not the best gauge of his hockey playing because he dealt with so many injuries and so many illnesses. He still finished, I think, 1 or 2 points off of the single season's point record for a player his age or something. But he had a good year that way, but he really didn't have a good year because he was dealing with a lot of other stuff. But there he is, the golden child himself, number 39 for the Sochi Hockey Club, Matt V. Michkov, the Flyers' 7th overall pick in this year's draft, and the savior, the man that's going to bring Lord Stanley and his cup back to Philadelphia. Let's not put too much on the young man right off the bat, shall we? But no, he's got comps to Ovechkin, and he's got speed. He's going to be a special player here. What he grades out to be at the NHL level is unknown, and we'll wait to see. But there you go, Matt V. Michkov, your Flyer Prospect Player of the Week here on the Edge of Philly Sports. So I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that as well. Pat says after this weekend, I'm sold. The Flyers need to sell. Even with connecting in a lineup over the weekend, they have lost either way. Yeah. Well, Pat, don't be so down about it, man. I mean, it's part of the process, man. It's a process, and they got to sell. So, all right. So that leads us to our final segment of the night, and I didn't mention it at the top of the show because I didn't want to. I just kind of wanted to save it. So I have one last thing I want to talk about, and then I'm going to turn it over for the night and be done. And this show, I want you to get inside the mind of Matty B. That's right. I want to open up my brain, and I want you guys to climb on in, and I want you to see how I see things. Because it's come to my attention that I am looked upon as a hot take kind of guy, a clickbait kind of guy, a Debbie Downer, a guy that wants to, stir the coffee, stir the tea, stir whatever drink you're into. I'm looked at in some circles as anti. This has been said to me. I am anti-Philadelphia sports, and when I hear that, it makes me sad. If people out there think I'm anti-Philadelphia sports, I really do. So I'm going to provide you a window into my mind tonight. I am going to cut open my cranium, and you guys are going to climb in, and I am going to give you why. I'm not going to give you it all because I don't think you'll never be able to unsee that. So I'm not going to give it to you all. But I'm going to give you why I am the way I am and the way I view Philadelphia sports. Now, For those of you who don't know me, who are watching for the first time, thank you, welcome, and I hope that I have cemented you as a lifelong sports buddy. But for those of you who don't know, I am one of the more realistic, honest, in-your-face kind of guys here on the network. There's a lot of homers here. I mean, there's a lot of them. Matter of fact, you can't swing a dead cat in this place without hitting a homer. You really can't. But that's okay. And I'm not. It's not a negative thing. But when you don't see things the way that the rest of the cult sees them, you get kind of vilified. And I think it's time that I provide why I see the things the way I do. So I'm going to give you a quick lesson as we climb on inside Matty B's brain. So let's go, shall we? All right. So just to provide some context, I was born and raised in Mayfair in Northeast Philly, right? Up there off of the 7000 block of Frankfurt Avenue is where I grew up. Kind of on the borderline of Tacony and Mayfair, like the southern edge of Mayfair and the northern edge of Tacony. I went to elementary school in Tacony. I went to high school at Father Judge up there in Mayfair. But so I kind of like lived sort of in between two neighborhoods, right? Had a lot of fun in Tacony and a lot of fun in Mayfair. Met a lot of girls, broke a lot of hearts in Mayfair and Tacony as well. So I kind of moved in and out of neighborhoods. I was born in the early 70s. I came to sports age. I came to sports consciousness in the early 1980s. Matter of fact, the day I became an Eagle fan, and I remember it that as clear as day, I was outside playing with my friends. It was freezing cold, right? And back then, and I lived in a neighborhood where you went into anyone's house. You just walked in. It was that type of, it was before it all went to hell, right? We lived, and I lived in a neighborhood with open doors. You walked in, said, hey, it's me, it's Matt. Can I grab something to eat? And and if they saw you out there playing in the cold, people would call you in so you could warm up. Back when people cared. And that was the type of neighborhood I grew up in. And we were playing one day, and we decided it was cold, and we went into this house that invited us in. They were having like a little get-together because they were all watching a football game. And I'm standing there in this person's living room, and I'm staring at the TV. And on the TV in front of me is the Cowboy-Eagle 1981 NFC Championship game, or the 80 Championship game played in January of 81. And I happened to walk in as Wilbert Montgomery is running down the seam en route to about a 45-yard touchdown run against the Dallas Cowboys. And coupled with what I already knew about the Eagles and Philadelphia sports, and coupled with the reaction of the people around me, I thought I was in heaven. I was hooked that day on the Eagles. Hooked. Absolutely 100% hooked. And 1 week later, or that night, or a couple hours later, I was up at Frankfurt and Cotman celebrating an Eagle trip to the Super Bowl 15. And just a few months earlier, I was standing again on said Frankfurt and Cotman celebrating the 1980 Phillies World Series victory. Just a few months earlier than that. So I thought that's how it was. That's how it always supposed to be. We win. We are a city of champions. 1980 Phillies World Series. 3 months later, I become an Eagle fan watching the Eagles beat the Dallas Cowboys en route to Super Bowl 15. A couple of years after that, the Sixers win the NBA championship finally. Mixed in there, the Phillies went back to the World Series in 83. They were a playoff team in 81 and 82. Right? The Flyers were, they were kind of dipping at that point in the low 80s. But the Sixers were dominant. The Eagles were what they were. They kind of fell off a little bit too. But there was enough there to hook an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid into thinking that that's what it was. That's the winning that the city of Philadelphia and its sports teams are supposed to be doing. And I drank it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I came willingly to the trough. And I don't regret it. Now, of course, history tells different stories. As we move through the 80s, things fell apart for everybody. And ever since that moment, and feeling that electricity of watching people that I didn't know, grown-ass adults, hugging each other over a football game. Me being in a sea of people on Frankfurt and Cottman Avenue celebrating a Phillies World Series. And then a couple years later being back up on that same corner, celebrating another trip back to the World Series in '83 for the Phillies. Then back at Frankfurt and Cottman that summer, or earlier that summer, celebrating a Sixers World Championship. I thought that's what Philadelphia sports was. And I thought that was the standard that we were going to hold each other to. You got to understand, this all happened at a very close time in my young life. I was an impressionable child back then. And then over the years as I grew up, and then the desperation and the depression settled in about being a Philadelphia sports fan, I got into I started feeling that way. Why are we not winning like it was when I was a kid? Why can I not go back to Frankfurt and Cottman and celebrate again? Why is it taking me 10 years from 83 to 93 to get back there? Why is it taking me from 1981, to 2005 to get back up there? And why do we accept it? The feeling, that feeling, and if you've never experienced it, and I know some of you have, but if you've never experienced it, there's nothing like it. And it's a drug. You get hooked. And you want it more. You want to win. You want the trophies. You want the parades. The Eagle Parade in 2018 was one of the greatest days of my life. I was too young to go in '80 for the Phillies. I didn't go in '83 for the Sixers. I was too young to go. I was only 1 and 2 for the Flyers. But I grew up in the shadows of all of this. I grew up in the winning. And it stopped. And then we became a city of excuses, of making excuses why we weren't winning and accepting blind reality as truth. And it upsets me. And for a while, I was wondering, why are Eagle fans the way they are today? Why am I dealing with a fan base that's so, and I'm going to center to the Eagles because they're the biggest ones, but why am I dealing with a fan base that is so clueless about how bad things can be? Because I lived through the good times, early part of my life with the Eagles, and I have lived through the majority of it was good, but the majority of it was bad. But I didn't leave them because I knew what the good felt like, and I couldn't wait to get back there. But the majority of Eagle fans today, the younger crowd, they don't know what it was like dealing with the final years of Dick Vermeil or Marion Campbell or Rich Kotite or Ray Rhodes, or to some extent, Buddy. They don't know what it was like to deal with that. They don't know what it was like with the clown show of quarterbacks that rolled through here. And the Phillies, the drama there in the 80s. And the abuse that Mike Schmidt took from the fan base. The absolute abuse the man took. The greatest third baseman ever played the game. The greatest Phillies third baseman ever played the game got abused by the media and the fan base because they weren't winning. That's what I thought we did here. I thought we held our athletes to a higher standard, that we didn't listen to excuses. And that's all I hear today. And I'm not listening because that's ridiculous. But this Eagle fan base now is so clueless of what it was like. They grew up in Andy Reid. They grew up in knowing nothing but the good times. So instead of accepting what it could be like, and yes, it can be bad, and yes, it has been bad, and yes, it can be bad again, they don't. They stick their heads in the sand because they're ignorant to it. They didn't live it, and maybe ignorance is the wrong word. They didn't experience it. They didn't grow up in it. They didn't, cut their teeth in it. All they know is good. All they know is the good days. They don't know that bad days can be for this organization. They can be. And I've lived through it. So maybe I need to relate more to them. Maybe I need to accept that they just don't know. But when I talk to a man in his 40s, and I get the same blind, excuse-fueled dribble about the Eagles, this guy's not too far off of my age. I'm 50. Yeah, I got about 10 years, the good 10 years on you. But still, there's enough pain that you lived through. You should be able to relate. But I get the same excuse-filled dribble. So that's why my mind is tuned the way it is, because I was raised in it. I was raised in the good and then suffered through the bad. And that's why I am the way I am, because I know how good it can be. Frankfurt and Cottman was a popular spot for me as a child. I was up there a lot in the middle of the night. And then I stopped going. I wasn't allowed to go back because there was no reason to go back. I didn't get back up there until I was a teenager, and that was for all the wrong reasons. And we'll talk about that later. But, that's what upsets me, or that's what confuses me about the fan base. It's great to live in the good times, but don't be blind and oblivious to the bad that's there. And don't say that it can't happen to us. Oh, it can, and it has, and it will. So that, in a nutshell, is why I am the way I am as a Philadelphia sports fan, because I've been battle-tested through it all. I've seen and was raised in the good. Man, when I think of my childhood, it is wrapped around those events. It's wrapped around the 83 Sixers. It's wrapped around the 80 Phillies, the 83 Phillies, the 80 Eagles. It's wrapped around all of that. And then the 84-85 Flyers, when they made their first push to the Cup after the glory years. The 86-87 Flyers, when they made their second push. The 96-97 Flyers, I was in my 20s then, but that was my childhood, man, of winning. Sprinkled in with some losing. And understanding that it can be bad, just as good as it can be good. So I had to get that off my chest. I had to reveal why I am the way I am. And thank you for those of you that listened to that dribble. But that is going to wrap it up for me today. And I want to thank everybody for being a part of the program tonight. We talked about a lot. We talked about A.J. Brown, the character issues to a man who claims he's the victim, but yet there's smoke. Where there's smoke, there is fire, AJ, and let's not be ignorant about that. The soft Eagle fan base that is apparently making excuses now for A.J. Brown. The good stories coming out of camp. And by the way, one last thing about the Phillies. I don't know if you've noticed this, and if you've watched some of the early games, you have. They're not wearing the red anymore. The red shirts are gone. They made this announcement at the end of last season that they weren't wearing those, or they were cutting them down. They're not going to use them as the primary uniform top on the last day of a series. They're not doing that no more. So they're going with their primary colors. In spring training, I don't know how I like that. I mean, it's spring training, for God's sakes. Wear your cool stuff. But yeah, we talked about that. We talked about some of the good news stories coming out of the Phillies camp. We talked about why I don't think Zach Wheeler is getting a contract extension, at least not this spring. We talked about why his fate might be tied to Andrew Painter. We talked about some Flyers injury issues that might that are now continuing to lend to a very trying season that is really going to work out well for this team, I think, in the long run when it comes to building character and building a type of rapport. Now, obviously, Jamie Drysdale hurt that shoulder, the same shoulder where he tore his labrum. God, I hope that's not what it is, but that could be massive. Drysdale might be gone for the year, but they're dealing with a lot right now, but they still are finding a way to be competitive, which is a good sign. And we talked about, of course, Matt B. Mitchkoff, the Flyers' golden boy, the Flyer prospect of the week. And then we got a little bit inside the mind of your boy Matty B. A lot to process right now, and I think I don't want to give you any more. But before I go, remember, if you're looking to travel like the pros, look no further than Philly Sports Trips. They got you covered for all the trips. They got this one coming up in Brazil this spring or fall. Eagles will open up the season on the road in Brazil against an unknown opponent, but Philly Sports Trips will be taking you there. Head over to their website and check that out. They also got this trip coming to London this summer, and they also added another one. They added a trip to Fenway over Father's Day weekend. What a great way to spend Father's Day. So make sure you head over to Philly Sports Trips and check out everything they have. There's new stuff's dropping just about every day. So if you want to travel like the pros, don't forget, you travel with Philly Sports Trips. With that, that's going to do it. I want to thank you guys. I wish you a great Philadelphia Sports Week, and we will see each other next week. Remember all the stuff we have to offer here on the Edge of Philly Sports. And what do they say? That is the news, and out of here.